What's up, everyone, and welcome to ClearTalk. So in this video, we are going to be talking about the fact that, as we expected, Israel already has attempted to try to fuck up this ceasefire. I mean, it is, there's no surprise here. This is a constant from Israel. Anytime they, that a ceasefire is imminent, or a ceasefire is trying to be negotiated between two parties that involve Israel, they do everything they can to thwart it and mess it up. And we're going to go over all this. We're going to go about and talk about this. So thank you very much for joining me here on ClearTalk. If you are new, welcome. Welcome to the channel. If you would like to check out more from the channel, please do so. Consider subscribing, like, share, comment, all that good stuff to get more videos in front of more people. Free for you, helps out the channel tremendously, and I would very much appreciate it. If you want to check out videos from my other channels, JMDPLAY, JMDPLAY, and JMD Puzzling, I'll get it right in a minute. And you like what you see there, consider subscribing and all that stuff to those as well. Again, it's free for you, helps out those channels tremendously. So thank you very much for any support there. If you want to go further, there's Patreon there. $2. That's right. I have dropped the price. I've dropped the price on all tiers on Patreon. So if you want to go over there, check that out. $2 now. $2 instead of $3. $2. You can support any of the channels that you would like a month. To help grow those channels and to help grow Patreon, to help grow JMD Nation and contribute to that growth however you would like. That would be very much appreciated. There are a couple of upper tiers for JMD that are a little bit more. They were 10 and 20, and now they are 5 and 10 relatively. So those were cut in half, okay? The 20 is now 10, the 10 is now 5. And all the rest of the just basic base tiers for all the channels are now 2 instead of 3. Because again, I do not get any money or anything from any of these channels. I have over 400 and something, I think, videos on this channel. I don't even know how many on JMD. There's multiple, all across them, and I do not gain any money, anything from them. So if you want to support, the only money or support that I can receive is from you. So if you don't, if you would be interested in supporting the channel, supporting the JMD Nation, that would be very much appreciated to help keep me going on this. Because I would love to continue to grow and do this for as long as possible. That would be amazing. Let's get on to what we were talking about here. I'm not done. If you are returning, you're freaking amazing. I will tell you that every time. Welcome back. Keep coming back, because you are you are what makes JMD Nation. Goodness gracious. Okay. I almost forgot that. I can't tell you that I'm going to tell you every time, and then I don't. All right. Down to business. Down to some seriousness. As we know, we went into a 2-week ceasefire, quote unquote, between Iran and the U.S. And this was put together by Pakistan, quote unquote. Because we know that there are some questions there whether or not it was actually the U.S. that just like, hey, Pakistan, you take the credit for this. Let's go ahead and try to do this so that we can get out from underneath this genocide that we've accidentally, threw out there to the world. But, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe. And what I immediately questioned right off the bat was that Israel was not technically included in this. Well, then the U.S. started coming out saying, of course, Israel is included in this. They are joining in on this. So this will be, a complete ceasefire. But then we get reports that right off the bat, Israel bombards southern Lebanon with the largest attack they have done pretty much to date. over 100 strikes within 30, like 137 strikes, I think it was, within 30 minutes. Over 100 of them within the first 10 minutes. It was a massive bombardment. Huge proportion, and so immediately it was like, what in the world is going on here? There have been no accounts of Iran striking or sending strike. Well, there were some very, very early on, but that was like immediately after the agreement was publicly made, and so there was immediate like understanding that some of the outer skirts of Iran's IRGC, web was more than likely had not gotten the information yet to stop. But since then, there have been no further attacks from Iran. But Israel did attack Lebanon, and it was a massive attack. And since then, I think earlier today, Lebanon also retaliated on those strikes. Sorry, let me correct that. Hezbollah retaliated on those strikes. So we're going to get to a couple of things here. We have here, this from Drop Site News is amazing news place. They have so many different connections and stuff all throughout the region, all over the place, honestly. And they do amazing work releasing stuff. Here we see they are saying Israel airstrikes hit funeral procession in Lebanon's Bekaa Valley, killing at least 10. An Israeli air raid struck the Shams Tar cemetery during a funeral procession, killing at least 10 people, including mourners. Lebanon's national news agency reported the Bekaa Valley, a rural region in eastern Lebanon between two mountain ranges, has been repeatedly targeted during the conflict. The attacks killed at least 27 people and injured 34 more in the Baalbek Hermel Governorate, which I probably said that wrong, which sits in the northern part of the Bekaa Valley in eastern Lebanon. So there was a funeral going on here, and they attacked an air raid made on the entire area, and some of the missiles actually hit the cemetery where a funeral procession was going on, and 10 people were killed in the funeral procession. The attack overall killed 27 people, according to this report so far. This is just like why? Like, why? These people were mourning, and you dropped. I mean, imagine that. Imagine that. You're at a funeral, and suddenly missiles come flying out of the sky and blow up all around you. It's just crazy. Here we have an Israeli. This is in well, let me get to that one in a second. I missed that one. I was supposed to shift that over. We have here a few pictures among the 254 people killed. Okay, that's what's being reported so far. 254 plus people killed in Lebanon. These are just some pictures of some of the people, as the IDF says it was carrying out Operation Eternal Darkness. I mean, think about that for a second. Operation Eternal Darkness. It's the naming of this shit that Israel does with their operations, that even the U.S. has been doing with their operations here lately. It's just absolutely insane. Some more pictures here. Today, Israel murdered them. All right. As a part of the 250 murdered, and over 700 wounded in the last 24 hours. It's just showing there were massive airstrikes all over Lebanon. But it's not forget also. There was also even a couple reporters, I think 2 reporters in Lebanon that I think I recall seeing that also died in those strikes. But also, let's not forget, and I think it's been kind of setting back here in the background, nobody really pointing to it a lot, or not even in the background anymore half the time, is that they are still bombing Gaza as well. Okay. And yesterday there was attacks made on Gaza. A 9-year-old girl was killed. Third grade student was shot and killed by Israel in an attack. This is the girl here. All right, this is the bullet. There were multiple people injured. There was also a reporter that was killed, an Al Jazeera reporter that was killed yesterday as well. And this is just showing that, this is his daughter a couple years ago, as she suited up like her father, talking about how she, her dream was to become a journalist like her father in Gaza. And then just showing today she's mourning her father being killed by Israel in a targeted strike on his car. Okay, a targeted strike on his car. This is a targeted attack by Israel, purposely killing an Al Jazeera journalist. This is a war crime. Okay, understand that is a war crime. You are not to target journalists along with infrastructure or innocent people. I mean, this is absolutely horrible. But going on, this is a radio journalist in Lebanon. Israel strikes kill Lebanon radio journalist in her home. Committee to project journalist reports. Gada, I think I might be having that wrong. Dayek, a presenter with privately owned Shot Al-Fara radio, was killed when an Israeli airstrike hit her apartment building in the southern coastal city of Tyre, destroying it, according to the outlet's director. She was 37 years old. Then here, Lebanese mother, Kala Malaj, and her 2 children, Yosef and Abbas, were killed in Israeli airstrikes in Lebanon on April the 8th. Just continue, on. Yeah, here's some more. Well, that's the same strike there. Here's airstrike pictures here. They took out a bridge also that cuts off cities here in southern Lebanon. It's just, if there's 20 or more, these are graphic here. This is in I think this was in Gaza, actually. So yeah, that just shows that, again, drop sites are really good source for finding out any, stuff that's going on that's not going to be reported by your regular news places. All right. So after that, we get, after the ceasefire has been released, we get this from Netanyahu, talking about the Iran ceasefire didn't surprise Israel, is stop on way to achieving goals. All right. Netanyahu said the United States did not surprise Israel by announcing its 2-week ceasefire with Iran, saying the truce is not the end of the war, but a stop on the way to achieving all of our goals. Iran entered the talks beaten and weaker than ever, adding that Israel is stronger than ever. The prime minister reiterated that there are still goals to be achieved, added that Israel will achieve them either by agreement or by renewing the war. He went on to say that their fingers were on the triggers and they were ready to start anytime they wanted to, anytime they choose. to restart. And we have Vance here because it started coming out that, when these attacks on Lebanon happened, Lebanon's not a part of this agreement. Lebanon's not a part of this agreement. Although Iran's like, yes, they are. What are you talking about? So we have here Vance speaking on this.
But look, if Iran wants to let this negotiation fall apart in a conflict where they were getting hammered over Lebanon, which has nothing to do with them and which the United States never once said was part of the ceasefire, that's ultimately their choice. We think that would be dumb, but that's their choice.
The United States never said was a part of this ceasefire. And if they want to just blow this up over Lebanon, has nothing to do with them. But we've always argued that Lebanon was a part of Iran and that they're just an extension of Iran, but they have nothing to do with them. But yet, that said that Israel had offered to check themselves a little bit in Lebanon to help the negotiations succeed, though this was an act of good faith rather than a requirement. This is after the fact now. If Iran wants to let this negotiation fall apart over Lebanon, which has nothing to do with them, this is ultimately their choice. Israel massacred over 250 people in Lebanon and injured nearly 1,200 more after pausing attacks on Iran as part of a ceasefire. Then we have Trump last night. All U.S. ships, aircrafts, and military personnel with additional ammunition, weaponry, and anything else that is appropriate and necessary for the lethal prosecution and destruction of an already substantially degraded enemy will remain in place in and around Iran until such time as the real agreement reached is fully complied with. What is this real agreement? Unless we're talking, or are we talking about what the administration is claiming was the real agreement, like the current agreement? Or is he talking about the agreement that is expected to be hopefully worked out in Islamabad this coming weekend, or the weekend after next, rather? What are we talking about here? If for any reason it is not, which is highly unlikely, then the shooting starts bigger, better, and stronger than anyone has ever seen before. It was agreed a long time ago, and despite all the fake rhetoric to the contrary, no nuclear weapons and the Strait of Hormuz will be open and safe. But I thought we didn't need the Strait of Hormuz. In the meantime, our great military is loaded up and resting, looking forward actually to its next conquest. Which I am assuming he's talking about Cuba here, because that's what they've been saying was the next one. Again, this is just a continuation of this Department of War. That's what their sights are on, continuous war. Whether it's with this person, this person, this person, it's continuation of war over and over and over again. But let me show you. This was the agreement. This was what Sharif, who is the PM, I think, I'm not mistaken, of Pakistan, who was the one coordinating all of this and released the initial release of diplomacy being made, diplomatic efforts for peaceful settlement. You can't see that very well. Let me blow it up. Diplomatic efforts for peaceful settlement on the ongoing war in the Middle East are progressing steadily, strongly, and powerfully with the potential to lead to substantial results in near future. To allow diplomacy to run its course, I earnestly request Donald Trump to extend the deadline to 2 weeks. Pakistan, in all sincerity, requests the Iranian brothers to open the Strait of Hormuz for a coordinated period of 2 weeks as a goodwill gesture. We also urge all warring parties to observe a ceasefire everywhere for 2 weeks to allow diplomacy to achieve conclusive termination of war and the long interest of long-term peace and stability in the region. And then he continues, with the greatest humility, I am pleased to announce that the Islamic Republic of Iran and the United States of America, along with their allies, have agreed to effect immediately ceasefire everywhere, including Lebanon and elsewhere, effective immediately. I warmly welcome the sagacious gesture and extend deepest gratitude to the leadership of both the countries and invite their delegations to Islamabad on Friday, April the 10th, so it's this Friday, so I apologize, to further negotiate for a conclusive agreement to settle all disputes. So he is saying here, including Lebanon, because Iran reportedly pushed, saying this ceasefire must allow all of our regions, okay? All of our extensions, all of our allies, the whole area. So not only Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, Hamas, everybody. But immediately, because he knew, the idea was that they knew that Israel was going to continue to try to attack Lebanon. And so they were trying to be like, look, no, you got to stop in Hezbollah too. Do not shoot there. And apparently the reports were that Israel, right before we released saying that we agreed to this, Netanyahu called Trump and said that Lebanon could not be included, that they would agree to everything except for Lebanon, that they wanted to continue to do activities in Lebanon. And Trump was like, okay, cool, yeah, Lebanon's not a part of it. So that's the reason why, since then, the U.S. has said, yeah, we never agreed to Lebanon. We have here, the ceasefire is less than 24 hours old and it's already being torn apart over Lebanon. Here's the situation. Pakistan announced the ceasefire applied everywhere, including Lebanon. Iran agreed on that basis. Then Netanyahu called Trump minutes before the announcement and got him to agree Lebanon was excluded. The White House never clarified publicly until it was too late. Vance called it a legitimate misunderstanding. There's a generous way of describing that. That's a generous way of describing what happened. Iran entered a ceasefire believing Lebanon was included. Israel entered knowing it wasn't. Someone either miscommunicated or deliberately let Iran sign a deal under false assumptions. The result, Israel launched its largest strike on Lebanon since the war began. Iran is now threatened to withdraw from Saturday's talks and close Hormuz again. Arakchi put it plainly, the U.S. must choose ceasefire or continued war via Israel. It cannot have both. Egypt accused Israel of a premeditated attempt to undermine the truce. Iranian news agencies report oil tankers in Hormuz are stopped after the Lebanon attacks. Vance says Israel offered to check themselves a little bit going forward. If Iran pulls out over Lebanon, he said that would be dumb, but that's their choice. This is exactly the pattern I've tracked for 44 days. Every time peace gets close, Israel fills the gap with bombs. The question has always been whether Trump controls Netanyahu or Netanyahu controls Trump. The phone call minutes before the ceasefire announcement answered that question. So, it's interesting. It's very interesting that we have the layout of events that have happened or are happening and has happened, where, again, Israel tries to do a last minute thing to be like, nope, this is not included because we don't agree to this. You've got to say, you've got to exclude this, being Lebanon. And Trump says, yeah, sure, okay. But that isn't expressed to Iran, which of course Iran would not agree to. So Iran goes into the agreement thinking that literally everybody is going to stop. period, all region. Okay. But Israel goes into it going, yeah, we'll agree to this after the fact, knowing that the U.S. and Washington knew that they did not mean Lebanon, or that they were accepting that Israel wasn't going to mean Lebanon, and that they were going to continue bombing Lebanon. But then after those attacks happen and everybody goes, whoa, whoa, shit, they're trying to blow up the ceasefire. We have Netanyahu coming out and stating that in light of repeated requests from Lebanon, this is today, in light of repeated requests from Lebanon to open direct negotiations with Israel, I instructed the cabinet yesterday to open direct negotiations with Lebanon at the earliest possible time. The negotiations will focus on the disarmament of Hezbollah from its weapons and the regulation of peace relations between Israel and Lebanon. Israel appreciates the call today by the Prime Minister of Lebanon to demilitarize Beirut. You go, what? So, wait a minute. According to Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Lebanon calls begging for negotiations for them to, to please stop. Let's have negotiations and talk. And this will focus on disarming Hezbollah, which Lebanon really has no control over Hezbollah. I mean, that's been like the whole problem between, well, not the whole problem, but that's been part of the problem between Israel and Lebanon, or the Lebanese government and army, is that they have not had the legitimacy or the power to be able to control Hezbollah, or to keep them under wraps or whatever. And yet you have here Netanyahu saying, "Oh, well, yeah, we'll have talks with Lebanon, and we'll set up a time for that." Because the prime minister here is promising to demilitarize Beirut. And you have video come out of the prime minister basically calling on the forces, the Lebanese forces, to demilitarize, to take up arms, to take control of Beirut, and to remove and disarm any person who is not a legitimate person to have arms. We have here from open source, though, that Iran says it will only join Islamabad talks if Israel halts strikes in Lebanon. A senior official added that any deal must include Lebanon, and claimed Iran held back retaliation after U.S. pressure on Israel. So after Israel does an operation, the largest operation that they have done to date, and that's even by their claims, even larger than the cell phone act that they did, a year or so ago, that under U.S. pressure, the U.S. basically was like, and because of the pressure from probably everybody in the region, like, hey, whoa, Lebanon was also supposed to be a part of this. Ceasefire means ceasefire. Everybody needs a ceasefire. We need to stop. All attacks need to stop. The U.S. apparently pressured Israel into backing down. That's the reason why JD Vance claims that, oh, Israel agreed to like pull back a little bit. And that's the way he framed it. We have here Trump urges PM Netanyahu to scale back Israeli attacks in Lebanon to keep Iran negotiations on track. The Netanyahu coming out in light of Lebanon's repeated calls to open direct in negotiations with Israel. I instructed my cabinet to yesterday to open direct negotiations. So what actually happened was the U.S. told Israel, hey, chill out. There's a lot of pressure here. We're trying to have a ceasefire. If you keep bombing Lebanon, I know you want to, and I know your reasons, but if you keep doing it, then Iran's just going to go right back at it. They're not going to hold back. They're going to jump out. We're not going to have anything here, and whatever. So then Netanyahu acts like, oh, well, okay. The prime minister, he throws it out there. The prime minister was begging for negotiation. So in light of that, I'm going to be a good, nice guy, and we're going to have talks about that. Okay. But Lebanese reports say Beirut has received no U.S. invitations for talks, adding that the issue is limited to Netanyahu's announcement. So Beirut is saying that there have been no invitations for talks, and that they don't know what Netanyahu's talking about here. Then we have here where open source intel says, senior Israeli official, we are open to negotiations, but it will be conducted under fire. The Lebanese government needs to prove that it is capable of succeeding where it has already failed. So we have an Israeli official saying, yeah, we will have negotiations, but we're still going to fire. And then here, breaking just now, Netanyahu, there is no ceasefire in Lebanon. We are continuing to Hezbollah very hard. The negotiations with Lebanon aim to dismantle Hezbollah's weapons and secure a historic, lasting peace agreement. We are aiming for more peace plans in the Middle East. There's no ceasefire in Lebanon. And Netanyahu is, even now, holding strong to the fact that Israel will not stop in Lebanon. So if that is the case, then there's nothing holding this together anymore. Iran went under this agreement that it included Lebanon. It included the entire region. Everybody was to cease fire. And we come together and talk. The U.S. agreed to this, but without revealing that Israel did not agree to Lebanon. And knowing that Israel would continue to bomb Lebanon. And that would potentially blow up the whole thing. Because the U.S. knew that Iran said that Lebanon had to be included. If they didn't, then there would be no need for Netanyahu to contact Washington and be like, yeah, Lebanon is not going to, we're going to have to exclude that. We're going to continue our operations there. So we went under a negotiation, a ceasefire, knowing that Israel was going to conduct operations that would knowingly piss off Iran, so that Iran would say that Israel went out from underneath or blew up the ceasefire, and then they would continue, they would go back to bombing. So then Israel would say, oh, they broke the ceasefire because they started bombing us. Lebanon was never a part of the ceasefire. We weren't throwing stuff at you. You started back with us. And then this would all go back, and there would be excuses all around. The U.S. would be like, oh, yeah, Lebanon was never a part of it. Yeah. So, like, you know, I mean, it kind of was, but then we said no. But we didn't really tell you that we said no. But, like, you know, yeah, it was never a part of it. This was fake to begin with. This is the same shit that happened before. The reason right before we started this war, where we were claiming we were going to have negotiations, Iran had agreed to basically everything that we were having them agree to, even like had agreed to like the strictest uranium enrichment that they had ever agreed to. And we still bombed them. Because Israel was bound and determined to attack Iran. Because Netanyahu, we now know, we have proof from the New York Times that when Netanyahu came to Washington before that he was urging the United States to start a war. And everybody else in the cabinet, except for Hegseth was the only one gung-ho to go to war with Iran, according to the New York Times. J.D. Vance did not agree and thought it was a bad idea. Even Rubio, the only thing he was accepting was around nuclear terms. He did not accept regime change, or he didn't think regime change was going to be effective or going to happen. None of them thought the Strait of Hormuz was a problem. The only thing that they did agree, even from a military standpoint, they did agree that they could potentially actually do was assassinate the supreme leader, which is what Netanyahu brought to them. One of his 4 points was that you can assassinate the leader, and then we can overthrow the government and have a regime change. And that point was the only point that even from the military aspect was like, yeah, we probably could do that. We could probably assassinate the leader. That's probably achievable. But everything else, nah, I don't think so. But Trump, they all bowed to Trump, and Trump ultimately said, let's go. Let's do it. It just shows more and more how Israel, Netanyahu specifically, pulls the strings around Trump over and over again. The reason why we got into this war to begin with, because Israel and their imperial, larger, greater Israel ambitions their genocidal, maniacal ways, whether it's Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, and now Iran. They're out of control. Every single time any kind of ceasefire agreement is up in the air, that's when Israel, I mean, we've seen it every time in Gaza. Every time there was supposed to be some sort of agreement working between Hamas and Israel to stop in Gaza, Israel would do the largest, craziest bombing campaign that they had done to date. Every time they upped it every time. Oh, you remember this attack? Well, we're going to do even harder. We're going to do even harder. And every time it would overthrow the negotiations and mess it up, and they would keep and everything would continue. This is an ongoing thing when it comes to Israel. And this one is no different. With a ceasefire on the brink, unstable as it were, because Iran had no faith in the U.S. or Israel in this. And to show you here, this is from the MB minister of whatever from Iran, Galabaf, Speaker of Islamic Republic of Iran's parliament. This is a statement from him, or a statement from Iran, where it showed statement on the violations of 3 key clauses of the 10-point proposal before the start of negotiations. The deep historical distrust we hold toward the United States stems from its repeated violations of all forms of commitments, a pattern that has regrettably been repeated once again. As the President of the United States has clearly stated in his truth, the Islamic Republic of Iran's 10-point proposal is a workable basis on which to negotiate in the main framework for these talks. However, 3 clauses of this proposal have been violated so far. 1. Non-compliance with the first clause of the 10-point proposal regarding the ceasefire in Lebanon, a commitment that the Prime Minister Sharif has also explicitly referred to and declared as an immediate ceasefire everywhere, including Lebanon and other regions, effective immediately. 2. The entry of an intruding drone into Iran airspace, which was destroyed in the city of Lar in Fars province, in clear violation of the clause prohibiting any further violation of Iran airspace. Denial of Iran's right to enrichment, which was included in 6th clause of the framework. Now the very workable basis in which to negotiate has been openly and clearly violated even before the negotiations began. In such situation, a bilateral ceasefire or negotiations is unreasonable. They felt all along, as before, that they could not trust the United States. Nobody can trust Israel. So the negotiations are already on bad terms. To say that things are workable, which was a question I brought up yesterday, that things are workable, but yet they're the exact same terms that you claimed you threw in the garbage, that Levitt yesterday claimed was thrown in the garbage and we would never agree to, because around the nuclear enrichment argument, then what are we talking about here? The 10-point proposal was to have no attacks or aggression towards Iran or any of its extensions, any of its allies, Lebanon, the Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis. That was the point. And the Pakistani PM, when he released this, he stated that Lebanon was included. It was a ceasefire everywhere. But once again, Israel does not agree to that. Because Israel has and feels the need that they need to bomb every day, somewhere, whether it's Gaza, whether it's Lebanon, whether it's Iran, whether it's Yemen, whether it's they need to bomb somebody somewhere. It has become habitual at this point that Israel needs to bomb somebody on a day-to-day basis. Why? For one, because they are warmongers. They are insane. But also, there are reports that because of this ceasefire, those trials for Netanyahu were going to continue starting this Sunday. And we know every time there's a ceasefire, that's the fear Netanyahu has. Because that's the only thing that is preventing him from his trials for his crimes against the state of Israel that he's being tried for. And this has been going on since before October 7th in 2023. Every time there's a ceasefire, there is a threat for those to continue and him coming closer to actually potentially being imprisoned and removed from office. So Netanyahu continues every time to uproot negotiations, uproot ceasefires, to continue bombing, because that is his argument, continued argument, that as long as there is some sort of military action being done, he must stay in power and there must not be any kind of trial going on around him, because he has to focus on those military actions. And that's the reason why Israel will not stop. They will not stop. Because Netanyahu can't stop. Because he is under threat of being removed from power. It is the amount of insanity that is going on right now around the Middle East, where you have all these leaders protecting and defending themselves from prosecution, from war crimes, from internal crimes. And because of that, we are all being placed into a war. We're all being put under economic strain, the entire world, because of all these leaders trying to protect themselves from criminal acts. From Netanyahu to Trump to multiple others, honestly. But those two particularly. When does it stop? When does it stop? So yeah, we have a very unstable ceasefire that Israel is determined to blow up, or at the very least, determined to do whatever they want anyways, and hope that the U.S. and Iran will just allow it. Again, Israel is the UC Ceasefire. And they prove it every time. They cannot stop. They cannot stop. It's amazing. It's amazing that the one common denominator that for some reason cannot stop themselves from dropping bombs or shooting missiles at all kinds of people around them is considered the most moral democracy in the Middle East. And Iran is the terror state. When they only shoot missiles in defense. I'm just saying. It's time to click in reality here. It's time to realize reality here. Who the actual terror states are. Anyways, let me know what you think. Until next time, peace. Clear Talk. I'm out.